This is the Just Live podcast with Dan and Suzie Potter, episode 57.
What is your life legacy?
How can what you're doing right now make a difference into the future?
We begin in 22 seconds.
Live life, see the good days in it, just live. Live life, see the good days, see the good days. Follow your potential. And live life, see the good days in it, thrive.
Your life is a remarkable story and adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive.
So welcome here to this Just Live podcast where we talk about our legacy. What we're doing now makes a difference into the future. And gear up because it's going to be story time with Dan and Suzie.
Well, my name is Dan.
And I'm Suzie.
Together
we are
Doozy, and it is story time. And we want to push a button here and go back 30 years, maybe even a little bit farther, to that point where we are looking forward to our legacy.
Well, what sparks this thought, you might ask? Thanks for asking. It actually is because this summer, at the time of this recording, we were at the 30th year anniversary of Teen Street in Europe. And it was a really magnificent week, but it reinforced for us the importance of inputting now and what's going to happen into the future. So we're going to jump back into our stories of where we started and how our legacy actually began rolling out.
So about 34 years ago, we got on one airplane, and we flew to Belgium. We had no idea what God was going to have us do. We joined an organization called Operation Mobilization, and we found out that we were going to be on a team that smuggled Bibles into Eastern Europe.
We couldn't talk about it back then.
There's an adventure. I feel it coming. I could get some legacy off of that.
So what ended up happening, we went to Austria, our home base, and they sent us into Poland. Poland was one of those countries that we had a lot of contacts in from previous days of smuggling, and so they wanted to have somebody go live in country.
Now,
they
wait.
had never done that before, and they wanted somebody to go do that.
I just wanted to bring you up here. We only did a couple smuggling runs. They wanted us to go and work with people, which for us, okay, that's an adventure as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we went into the country of Poland, and we started in Krakow, and they gave us an exploratory trip all around Poland with all the contacts they had at the moment. And we sat with people in their living rooms, in their churches, in parks. We met with people all over Poland. Very rich experience, learning the culture. And every time we asked, what do you need here in the country? And overwhelmingly, the response was youth ministry. Well, that was fantastic because that's what we both had been very involved in up to that point.
An interesting thing, back in those days, you had to use code names. So I was Peter.
And I was Lydia.
And that's how we introduced ourselves to people, because there was KGB around and there were people trying to get us out of the country. And a couple of first churches we went into, they said, "This is Dan and Suzie Potter. They're missionaries from Operation Mobilization."
Our cover was completely blown.
All right, we're just going to have to live with this. And we actually ended up living in the country for 7.5 years.
We started in 4 years in the city of Krakow down in the south, and then the last 3.5 years in Gdansk in the north. That whole time, we were working with the next generation. We were working with teenagers. We'd go into schools. We would bring topics in. They let us in to talk about the Bible and to speak native English. Those were our open doors. And from those contacts in classrooms, in school assemblies, we would come back once a month and have a big gathering. It had a few different names. It was called International Teen Club. It was called Powerhouse in different seasons of it. And we would have these big monthly meetings where we would have just experiences for the teenagers to have to continue to use their English, expose them a little bit more to Jesus, and we do follow-up Bible studies after that.
Let me pause the button here for a second, because if you go back to the time when we were married, there was a verse that God gave us from Psalm 71:17, and it said, "Since my youth, O God, you have taught me, and to this day I declare your marvelous deeds. Even when I am old and gray, Do not forsake me, O God, till I declare your power
To the next generation.
your might to all who are to come. That was our vision.
Yeah.
That was, no matter where we went, no matter what we did, we're going to be working with the next generation. So we ended up in Poland working with the next generation, and people from our organization said, you know what, I would like to see if you two could organize a congress here in Europe for teenagers. OM had never done that before. And would you direct that? And we looked at each other and we said, no, we're not in an organization. We just want to work with young people. And a month later, they said, you are going to direct it. And we said, okay. And we began to pray. And 9 months later, it was like a pregnancy. 9 months later, the first Teen Street came about with 56 young people.
And this was Teen Street, the beginning of Teen Street in Europe, in the city of Offenburg. So just this August 2023, we were back for the 30th year reunion anniversary. It was a normal Teen Street for them, whatever normal is for Teen Street. And they invited us back to come and celebrate. We especially got the privilege of working with the service team. If you're listening to this and was one of those people we got to meet up with, it was awesome. It was a gift to us. It felt like a trophy, really, like an award for 14 years. For so many years that we had invested year after year after year into Teen Street in Europe, and also in that time it multiplied internationally to other countries around the world as well.
I think this last year it was in 42 countries, something like that. Here's the interesting thing. As we walked around Teen Street this year, this is about legacy. We kept running into people who said, can I tell you my story?
Yeah, we love stories. Yes, please.
Yeah. And there are international leaders today who said it was when I was 13 or when I was 14 years old that I really met God at Teen Street. This is what you said to me, or this is, you prayed for me. We began meeting missionaries from around the world, not even with our organization, that said, you know what, it was there. Over and over again. Matter of fact, even the director of Teen Street in Europe, he was just a young man when he committed his life to God at Teen Street.
So exciting.
And this is not about us. Here's the thing about legacy. Legacy is not about you. Legacy is about what God can do through you.
That's right.
You're a tool in God's hand. And if you don't aim for anything, you're not going to find it. But when you set your mind to something, to say this is, as a couple, we really set our mind to how do we work with the next generation. That may be teenagers.
Showing them God's power and His might.
That may be young adults at college. That may be couples. But all of them are next generation. They're the ones stepping into some very important places, and we want to be a part of that. And so we want to ask you the question about your legacy.
So, what are you doing right now that's making a difference? Of course, right now, but with ripple effects into the future. We don't always think like that. And it just jarred our memory being at Teen Street celebrating 30 years of Teen Street in Europe. It's so cool what God is doing, what He has been doing, what He will continue to do. And it was like seeds planted. One of our friends gave us the verse just as a focus as we were heading to Teen Street in Europe. And it was from Matthew 6 and a number of other spaces in the New Testament. This story about there was a little boy and all he had was 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he brought what he had to Jesus. He gave it to Jesus and Jesus multiplied it and fed 5,000 people, and there were 12 basketfuls left. So I love the generous God, the abundance mentality of God, where He doesn't just give us a little bit, He gives some and He gives more and He multiplies it. In Ephesians it said He's able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine according to His power at work within us in Ephesians 3:20. And I love that. And in 21 it talks about the next generation as well, for all generations. And He is an abundance mentality God who wants to take whatever 5 loaves and 2 fishes we have and multiply that and leave a legacy as a result of that.
So it's simply this. If you notice today, we match every day, but today we wore our good news
Yep,
outfits.
this is good news.
With the print right on it. And that's what it means to live a legacy. You put on the good news of God every day and you walk into certain areas. You may have a focus into arts and entertainment. Then bring good news there. Maybe business, maybe in your community. Maybe you're one of those geeks that you're into data and media.
Use it.
Take the good news there. Maybe education. Maybe it's in the whole area of faith that you want to make sure people have deeper faith. Maybe it's in government. We need good news to be in our governments today. Or maybe it's simply home and family. Raising a family that will love God, love their neighbor as themselves. All those things are legacy. All of those things are putting on good news and walking out into your sphere of influence and just showing up and letting God create whatever He's going to create.
I love that God uses who you are to ripple effect the kingdom of God. For us, we love working with the next generation because they are in a space where they're trying to find out who am I and where do I fit and how do I fit. And that has been something that has just triggered us to engage in personal relationships. As Dan was saying, we work with our third culture kids mainly on Saturdays. We work with the next generation young people in our Fully Alive Revolution mainly on Mondays. And then we've recently started something for couples called Seasons of Life for Couples. And how did we get doing and how come we're doing these three big things that maybe could be a full-time job, each of them? How? We are leaving a legacy. We start with our third culture kids. They grow up into young adults. We keep journeying with them and following them. We try to see what's going on with them, and we try to stay, as we did with Teen Street all those years, as we do with MTO, our camp for third culture kids, stay a little bit ahead of what we see they're trending in and prepare them for that situation. And now we're with couples in Seasons of Life. Those young people get married, and then we're like, we're going to continue to journey with you and see how we can continue to leave a legacy into you, grow you knowing who you are, allowing you to show up fully alive. This is like the legacy that God has gifted us with a vision for, and it's what we continue to do.
This week we had a very special privilege of Christian stopping by our house. We haven't seen Christian for 19 years. He used to be part of our camp. He was a part of Teen Street, and he's been traveling around America with his family, and I can see in him the legacy continuing to his family. We had a special day just hanging out with his daughter, and it's just so cool to see people who are living for legacy see other people who then are living for legacy, who then see other people who are living for legacy. And I would like to challenge you, if you're listening to this or watching this, it's about just living.
Yeah.
And just living is not about, okay, what do we have to do to make sure this happens? It's living the good news. It's having a focus, and it's showing up in that space. No idea who's going to show up and talk to us in 30 years, and you don't know that yet either. But you know what? There's no one going to be talking if we don't show up. And so this is just a time to be thinking about living your legacy.
That's right. So as Dan said, the challenge that we have for you is to consider, what is that vision that God has given you? Last night in our Seasons of Life Mastermind, one of the questions that we discussed is, how do you have a vision as a couple? And we're like, what a great question. And it took us back to this thought right here of leaving a legacy. It took us back to our Psalm 71, 17 and 18 verse that says, since then, and God, you're doing this, and we want to see the next generation. That's our vision. Our vision started with a verse, and then opportunities opened up as we had we had that vision, we had that passion, we had that desire to see people really grow in who they are and make a difference in their world.
And we're gray now, but we're not old yet. And so we're going to continue living a life of vision, so that the legacy continues.
So what is your legacy? What is your vision? What is the direction that God is allowing you to live because of who He created you uniquely to be? In Psalm 139:14 it says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and I know it full well. Do you know full well who you are and what God wants you to do now, and as a legacy, making ripple effects in the world around you?
So if you need help to figure out your vision, to figure out your legacy, get a hold of us. We love to coach and mentor people forward into living fully alive.
Contact us with any of the ways that will work for you. There's a contact tab on our website, duzie.com. That's DUZIE.com.
May you live fully alive as you love your life, your world, and your God. My name's Dan.
My name is Suzie.
Together we are Doozy. Live fully
and love fully. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. Talk to you soon.